Howdy readers, I'm Jason, this is Chapter and Verse, and this is Kelly from Books I'm Not Reading.
Hey guys!
And today we're going to do a little joint video where we talk about The Winter's Tale by William Shakespeare. And this is for Shaketube 2019, which is a September-long celebration of Shakespeare that is co-hosted by myself, Lukash from Totally Pretentious, and the inestimable Steve Donahue. We are each reading 3 different plays over the first 3 weeks of the month. And then for the last week of the month, this coming week, we're going to be reading The Two Gentlemen of Verona together. And so all 3 of us will have videos up on that play next weekend. But this is The Winter's Tale. And so just in brief, The Winter's Tale is considered one of Shakespeare's late romances. There were 4 of those. The Winter's Tale, The Tempest, Pericles, which I have not read, and Cymbeline, which I feel like I need to reread. And The Winter's Tale is probably my second favorite Shakespeare play. This was only my second time reading it. I first read it as an undergraduate back in the late 90s, I suppose. So long before some of you were born. You know, going into this reread, part of me was worried that I was going to have changed just enough that the play wouldn't have been as effective as it was when I was a young lad. But I think I think I probably liked it even more. So this was Kelly's first time reading the play, and so I just wanted to ask you at the outset, you finished it yesterday, what you thought, what were your impressions?
Well, first of all, you guys should know at home that we deliberately did not talk about this play while we were reading it because we thought we might do this joint video. So we really, I'd be like, what point are you at? Where are you at in the play? And we'd start to talk about stuff and then go, stop. So this is really the first time we're talking about it. And I really, really liked The Winter's Tale. I don't know if it's because I've been reading so much Shakespeare, but this was one of the plays that was the easiest for me to visualize, and I haven't seen any kind of adaptation of it, but I really felt like I could picture Hermione in this kind of drapey gown and her hair, all these curls piled up on her head. Like I just really felt like I could see it for once, which was great. So, and it's interesting because obviously Shakespeare, you know, there's nothing about any of that. Well, the first half of the play, which is with Leontes and Hermione, I saw it on a stage with very few sort of set pieces. But then the second half of the play, where we're in Bohemia, I felt like I could see the land and I could see the house, and it was really, really interesting. And it's interesting that you said it was one of his late romances, because I feel like the first half is a tragedy and the second half is kind of a comedy romance.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, no, I see that. Yeah, no, this is a play that, so Kelly was asking me while we were reading it, knowing full well that I wasn't going to be able to respond to her because we were planning this video. But you kept asking me what is it about? Like, what is it? You know, what's going on with this thing?
And I feel like I get that a little bit more since I finished it, but yeah.
I think the play is about a number of things, right? I think this is a play about, I think it's very much in line with Othello, right? Othello is also a play that's about jealousy and the ends to which jealousy can drive a person. There are echoes of Much Ado About Nothing in this play, right? In Much Ado About Nothing, hero, what's his name? Claudio, I think. Is it Claudio?
Claudio, yep.
Claudio is led to believe that hero dies. And then he's reunited with her at the end, right? So same kind of thing happening here. So part of this, I feel like this is Shakespeare revisiting things that he did earlier in his career and doing them better. And trying to, you know, we were talking about the Tempest here recently. We watched, so Kelly and I watched the new Kenneth Branagh film, which is called
Oh, that's true.
All Is True. Yeah, I want to say All Is Lost, but that's a Robert Redford movie. That has a very different tone. But yeah, so we watched All Is True here recently, which is about the end of Shakespeare's life. And you were asking me yesterday about why did Shakespeare hang it up? Like what was his retirement all about? And I said something to the effect of, I feel like, especially with The Tempest, which was the last play that he wrote by himself, that our cat is scratching his little post over there. That he had said everything he wanted to say. Like when you read The Tempest, the end of The Tempest, it feels like closure. It feels like the end of a career, like the end of a life. And The Winter's Tale as well. I feel like he was trying to, just I guess tie the ends off on things that he had explored in his career, themes and devices and such, and he wanted to do them as well as they could be done. And I feel like The Winter's Tale does that. And I feel like The Winter's Tale in some ways kind of redeems the play Othello, right? So Othello is incredibly dark, and it's about revenge, and it's about jealousy, and it's about irrationality. And the fact that that this play has, halfway through it, has this hinge where we're led eventually to reunions and rebirths. I just think that's lovely, and it's not without its tragedy, right? I mean, the little boy dies, and he doesn't come back to life, right? Antigonus dies, so he's with the famous stage direction exit, pursued by a bear, which would be funny were it not for the fact that he is eaten like Timothy Treadwell.
I had no idea. Like, I knew about the stage direction. But I didn't know, you find out, he got eaten by a bear. Like, that is so crazy to me. Like, it shouldn't be, that stage direction shouldn't be a joke because of what follows it. It's so awful. On its own, like, if you just see exit, pursued by a bear, it's funny. But then, I just saw this guy trying to escape from a bear, and the bear had, ripped his shoulder out and was chowing down, and
that scene actually makes me think of one of my scariest scenes of all time, which is in An American Werewolf in London, which I have very fond memories of watching by myself in the middle of the night when I was probably 8 years old on HBO.
God, Jason.
When they're attacked on the moors, on the foggy moors at the beginning of the film. So that's scarier than this, obviously. This isn't really scary, but it is sad. I mean, it is really, really sad.
I thought his wife, Paulina, is a masterpiece of Shakespeare. I think she's one of the strongest female characters I've ever read, and I just loved her just guts and bravery. Like, she stands up to the king, she stands up to her husband, she never ever stops believing in Hermione and the hope that her daughter will one day come back. But so I was just
Hermione's daughter.
Right, Hermione's daughter, excuse me, yes. Hermione's daughter would come back, and I really, really loved her. I thought she was just a really powerful character.
Yeah, well, she's just really fierce. And I think that was actually the scene where she stands up to Leontes, I think was my favorite scene in the play this time. Whether it's her or Camillo earlier on, I love how there are these examples of people speaking truth to power, who are standing up in the face of tyranny and paranoia, and knowing full well that by doing so they're risking their own lives. Because the king is clearly capricious. He is clearly somebody who is operating according to whim. He is operating according to his own internal logic, and it makes no sense to anyone else. Even when the messengers to the oracle come back and deliver the news that she's innocent, etc., etc., he led everyone to believe that he was fully
go along with the oracle,
fully capable of accepting the oracle's decision, but he's like, oh no, that's bullshit, and we're not gonna go there. Kelly gives me the Kermit face anytime I use foul language on my channel. But so speaking of strong women, because Hermione is quite strong as well, and it just occurred to me, wouldn't it be fun if, I don't know, like 15 years from now, if Kenneth Branagh directed a film version of The Winter's Tale and cast Emma Watson as Hermione? Wouldn't that be fabulous?
Only if there's a basilisk.
Well,
Did you catch the mention?
There's a basilisk mentioned in the play.
And then I was like,
yeah,
okay, were you reading this
we
on
saw a
the
very
train?
funny meme about Harry Potter and the basilisk here recently. But speaking of strong women, so I had a question for you and for all of you. So, I think the biggest question that hovers over this play is, why does Leontes arrive at this conclusion? Because Leontes seems to know himself and be in control of himself at the outset of the play when he's trying to convince Polixenes to stay, and then just all of a sudden, right, he's gone a little bit loopy, and so my question is, why? I mean, what reasons might there be for that?
It's a great question. I mean, it's clearly how he feels from the very beginning of the play. And I think...
What? Jealous or paranoid?
Yeah, I think so.
I don't think at the very beginning.
Well, so yeah, I mean, maybe, I don't know, like, it's weird though, like, why does he ask, I can't say the names of these characters, Polixenes, why does he ask Polixenes to stay if he thinks that the guy is fooling around with his wife? Plus, isn't she pregnant, or is that like is there a time lapse or something that...
Well, so I don't know. I don't remember how long Polixenes has remained there, and I don't think Leontes thinks, when he's trying to convince Polixenes to stay, I don't think that he suspects his wife and Polixenes of fooling around at that point. So the idea that struck me, the idea that occurred to me while reading this play, I don't
know if I agree with that, but anyway,
was that might his suspicion have come from his feeling threatened by his wife's power, I suppose. She's capable of convincing Polixenes when he wasn't. So, it seems to me that men in positions of power can become very, very paranoid about people trying to usurp their power, or people having more... powers of persuasion over other people than them, and it somehow could be construed as a kind of diminishing of him, that his wife is capable of doing something that he wasn't capable of doing.
But she's doing it because he asked her to. Like, she is persuading him because her husband said, we want him to stay longer.
Yeah, that's true.
And she says later in her own defense that she only behaved toward her husband and toward Polixenes in a way that she thought would become her husband. Right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's a little bit weird at the beginning because I think there is some reference to, like, her putting her arms around Polixenes, which I thought was maybe a little bit strange. Like, but again, I don't know. I mean, it's, again, we're given so little... Because it's a play, right? So much is about how does she talk to Polixenes? Does she talk to him differently than she talks to her husband? Or, like, what? But clearly at some point, though, like, he just goes off the deep end, like the king.
Well, and I think that he just, works himself into a kind of spiral, right? I mean, he becomes more and more sure of himself. He becomes more and more paranoid. He becomes more and more just impassioned about her guilt. Once he's locked her up, and he goes on his tirade about wanting her burned and wanting the baby burned. If they won't burn the baby,
he'll prison.
Yeah, he'll dash the baby's brains out with with his bare hands, swinging it around like he's in the Old Testament or something. But I can feel that look. He just goes crazy, and I think part of that is, so once the seed is planted, so I saw Ad Astra Friday night at the theater, right? And no, I mean, there's a scene in that film where Brad Pitt's character, he's on a ship all by himself, and he has to get out to Neptune to do something that's going to be incredibly difficult for him to do, something he isn't sure he has the strength to do. And he's on the ship, and the ship informs him, like, your journey will take 79 days, and he is by himself. And we see him almost going crazy, right? Like, he's given so much time to himself, and all these things that he's thinking about. I mean, he's just spinning all of these scenarios in his head, and he almost goes crazy. And I feel like the same thing happens to Leontes, right? Like, the longer he sits with this idea of suspicion, the more intense it becomes, the more irrational it becomes, the more he's resistant to anybody appealing to his common sense. And yeah, I don't know. I think that's one of the wonderful things about Shakespeare is that, you know, when we encounter or when we watch other films and read other plays and read other novels, that we see some of the things that he's doing in his plays crop up in these other works of art, right? And I think that serious artists tend to engage the same kinds of things, the same kinds of stories, right? When Dan and I finished watching Ad Astra, Dan was like, this felt like a Greek tragedy to me. And
so
and
if
it
you were
absolutely
to cast Brad Pitt in this play, what part would you give him?
Well, that's a great question, because he can do crazy really well. Not just 12
Not
Monkeys.
as well as Tom Cruise or Mel Gibson, but
Well, there's a difference. There's a difference between doing crazy
be crazy
and being crazy. I don't know. I would probably cast Brad Pitt as Leontes. I think that
Really?
I think he would be able to do that really well. Actually, I'd like to see him do some Shakespeare. I don't think he's ever done any on screen before. But
Sure.
but anyway, so so that was one of the things I wanted to bring up, right? This idea that that it could be, that she was exhibiting a power over their guest, power of persuasion over their guest that he was incapable of. And it seems to me that he
felt threatened.
He might feel threatened
Yeah.
by it. Yeah.
It could be. Although the part with the son dying was so sad. Did he die? He died by suicide, right? He killed himself. The son.
I don't know. I didn't get that. He might have, I suppose. He is a pretty morose kid. Where's that line? He's got my favorite line, actually, in the play Mamilius. He says, a sad tale's best for winter. And then he says, I have one of sprites and goblins. But I don't remember how he dies, actually. I'll have to go back and look at that.
Well, it's quite a dramatic scene, right? Because, he dies, they're having the kind of the trial before they hear what the oracle has to say. And so Leontes is accusing Hermione of things, and Hermione's giving these great speeches in her defense. And then the son dies, and then she passes out and is carried away. And
now everybody's told that she had died.
So she's not dead?
What? Hermione doesn't die.
She's alive at the end? We may have to edit this.
No. So that's my favorite scene in all of Shakespeare at the end. She's not actually...
In all of Shakespeare, so she's just lying like a statue?
I think she's posed like a statue. I think I have always interpreted the end of this play.
I was a little confused. Okay,
I have always interpreted the end of this play that Hermione has been kept by Paulina all these years, 16 years, in the hopes that the daughter would return, but she's keeping Hermione safe in all those years. Okay? There's that reference, right? Like, she has this house that she visits. For the last 16 years, she visits this house, and nobody ever goes into this house but her.
But it also implies there's an artist who's doing a statue,
no,
right?
Well, somebody says that. She could have just told them that, right? No, so that's how I've always interpreted it, is that she's not actually dead. And it's not a statue actually coming to life. It's her
I thought
posing.
It was maybe the ghost of her, because she does appear like a ghost to Antigonus. Is that, no, that's not right. I'm not saying that anyway.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
The guy who gets eaten by the bear.
Is it Archidamus?
I don't know.
His name starts with an A.
I'm looking at the end here. Okay, so Hermione is talking.
It's fascinating.
Well, it just wasn't. Okay, Paulina does say that she is living. Were it but told you should be hooted at, like an old tale, but it appears she lives. Though yet she speak not, mark a little while. Please you to interpose, fair madam, kneel, and pray your mother's blessing. And then to Hermione, turn, good lady, God, the names in this play. Our Perdita is found. And then Hermione says, you gods, look down, and from your sacred vials pour your graces upon my daughter's head. Tell me, mine own, where hast thou been preserved? Where lived? How found thy father's court? For thou shalt hear that I, knowing by Paulina that the oracle gave hope thou wast in being, have preserved myself to see the issue.
There you go. And she wasn't cryogenically frozen or anything like that. Okay, so I think Paulina has been keeping her, not just preserving her, but at the same time I feel like Paulina has been punishing Leontes for what he had done, and she's not above doing that. She was uber pissed earlier when Leontes was off his rocker, was off his nut a little bit. So I mean, talk about renewal and rebirth, right? This idea.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
This idea of someone thought to be dead, posing as a statue of themselves, and then somehow coming to life, right? The statue coming to life.
That's quite an.
That's what I'm saying. Like it's my favorite scene in Shakespeare. When you finish the play, I'm reading the play and she finishes the play and she's like, oh, okay. And I'm just like,
oh my gosh, Hermione's alive!
It's absolutely wonderful. And when I say wonderful, I mean that's precisely what I mean. This is an ending that is about wonder. Like it's about.
And also, I think about redemption.
Well, it is about redemption. Like I said, from Jane Austen Book Club. It's all about mistakes and second chances, as Jimmy Smits would say. So we're going to be watching this. So this is, let me look at the camera.
It's a ballet.
It's a ballet of The Winter's Tale.
Yeah, production of The Winter's Tale.
And I think
really cool.
The Royal Ballet from, it says co-production with the National Ballet of Canada. So I don't know if this is British or Canadian. If any of you know or have seen this, let us know what you think of it, and we will be watching it maybe tonight, maybe tonight, maybe tomorrow. And then the other thing that I wanted to show you guys in this absolutely scattered video. So we bought this a couple of years ago at a.
I think you bought it
at a bookstore in Fort Collins, Colorado. And this is called Botanical Shakespeare, an illustrated compendium. And it has all of the flowers, fruits, herbs, trees, seeds, and grasses cited by the world's greatest playwright. And if you look inside...
It's quite lovely.
Yeah, and let me find another page here. So for instance, this page here is garlic, right? And it has all of these quotes from all of these different plays of Shakespeare's in which garlic is mentioned. And from The Winter's Tale, Dorcas says, Mopsa must be your mistress, marry garlic to mend her kissing with. In A Midsummer Night's Dream, Bottom says, most dear actors, eat no onions nor garlic, for we are to utter sweet breath. So every single page, and I think some of the plants have 2 pages.
Well, and talk about why you bring up plants in regards to The Winter's Tale.
Well, I mean, bring up plants because there's a
bouquets,
hell of a lot of them mentioned.
The little bouquets that Perdita gives.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, she spends pages essentially just. It's a little bit like when Ophelia is passing out her plants before she kills herself in Hamlet, and she says, Ophelia. Let's see.
Ophelia's not going to be in there.
I know Ophelia's not in this play. I am aware. Oh, the squirrel just ran across the.
Oh, my cat is quite.
Yeah, here we are.
Okay.
So on, let's see, what is this? Act 4, Scene 4. Line 70, Perdita says to Polixenes, "Sir, welcome. It is my father's will I should take on me the hostess ship of the day." To Camillo, "You're welcome, sir. Give me those flowers there, Dorcas. Reverend sirs, for you there's rosemary and rue," right? Like, that sounds like Ophelia to me. But yeah, Ophelia is presenting people in Hamlet with these flowers and these herbs just before she dies, when she's walking around just completely mad. There are some productions of Hamlet where she's not even giving them actual things. Like, she's giving them that are not even, things that are not even plants or what have you. I mean, they could be sticks or something. But so this feels, again, like he's taken something from Hamlet and he's making it beautiful somehow. He's taking something that was ashen and ghostly and tragic, and he's imbuing it with color and with life and with beauty. I mean, she spends pages talking about all of these flowers and these plants, and it's this awakening, right? I mean, the first half of the play, everything is so cold and so bitter, and the second half of the play, we have shepherds and shepherdesses, and flowers and rebirth, right? Springtime.
Yeah, and I can really see that second half playing well into a ballet, because they talk about, like, they do the shepherd's dance or something like that. So I can see that feeding into that.
Yeah, I could almost see like a kind of maypole or something like this maybe on the stage. I love like maypole dancing, like the little rings.
I think these people are probably capable of more than that. The Royal Ballet, yeah. But just a thought.
So those are a few thoughts on The Winter's Tale. There are other thoughts.
I feel like a moron for not realizing she was alive.
That's okay. That's all right. Takeaway from this video, I suppose, that for me the highlight of this thing was when Paulina confronts Leontes and just savages him. I mean, I think her railing at him, I think that's some of the best writing in Shakespeare. I would say, for me, apart from certain scenes in The Tempest and certain speeches in The Tempest, that's maybe my favorite scene in all of Shakespeare that I've read, apart from some of the stuff in The Tempest.
And I think for me, this was, like I said, the play that I've read so far, and it could just be because I've read a lot of Shakespeare lately, but for me, this was the play that I could see it so well, which usually doesn't happen unless I've seen like a film adaptation and I'm just like substituting those people in. But I haven't seen anything of this, and yet like it was just, it's so strong. I don't know, maybe the language carried the description with it.
This was the case with The Tempest too. I mean, I feel like at the very end of his career, he was just better at that. He had learned so much through writing so many plays, and I feel like at the end of his career, certain talents of his and certain sensibilities of his really kind of crystallized. And like he's been working on coal his whole career, and all of a sudden he's got diamonds there at the end. Anyway, so thank you for joining us, and sorry if this ran
Remember,
longer
be kind
than
to yourself and
you'd
be kind to others.
There's Kelly's little tagline there.
That's right.
And my tagline, of course, is adios.
Bye, BookTube.